Hi guys, we're now going to talk about question two. Question two on your exams was 6 marks. Again, you're not going to be wanting to do this for any more than 10 minutes as a maximum. And this will be the last question that you do on your exam paper. Now, when we're talking about this, it will ask you about the accuracy of a particular source or an interpretation. Now, what that means is that in this question, they will deliberately, okay, and always give you a very one-sided account of something. So they will only ever be giving you half an account of a particular topic. Now, for example, in this case, they're talking about demobilization, and what this source interpretation provides you with is a very negative experience of demobilization. And what it doesn't do, and this is going to be important in your answer, is it doesn't comment at all on any of the positive experience or the things that actually were done very, very well in relation to demobilization. It also doesn't cover some of the other negative aspects as well. So those are going to be important things. But it could give you a question too, ask you about the accuracy of, for example, evacuation. And it might give you a one-sided account of an evacuee, perhaps one that had a good time, whereas actually we know that some evacuees had a negative time. So whatever it gives you is going to be only half a story. Now, what the way to start this is in your step one is you don't have to worry too much about that. But in your step one, you have to say what the source says and say where the source is from. So always easier to start with where the source is from. In this case, you're going to start with something like, interpretation one is a negative account of demobilization, because as soon as you read the source, you'll see that it's a negative account. So you're going to start with that. You're going to say it's a negative account of demobilization, and then you're going to talk about where it comes from. You're going to talk about the book that it comes from, and then you go on to say what the source says. So you just say the source starts off by saying this, it goes on to say this, and finally it says this. You don't have to explain any of that yet, okay? So all you have to do is outline what it says. So your first 5 or 6 sentences of this are simply just going, this is where the interpretation is from, and this is what it says. After that, then, what you're going to do is you're going to move on to describing the event and seeing whether what it's talking about is remotely accurate. So in our case, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be sort of saying, things like demobilization began in June of 1945. It took over 18 months for everyone to return home. But you're going to show the examiner that you're aware that experience of this were mixed. Okay, some people had some really negative accounts, whereas others had positives. Now we know that this is a negative account. So at this point, we would talk about the positive things about this source in the sense of what is accurate about it. Okay, so we know that a lot of people did, this, for example, this source talks about people experiencing problems back in the workplace and being sort of slightly bullied and struggling to adjust back to new jobs. Now we know that that's a feature of demobilization. So you can say, look, well, it looks quite accurate in its depiction of that particular negative side, because we know that some people did experience that. Okay, so that's going to be your step 2, where you're going to say, well, actually, look, that we know there's mixed sides of it, but let's look at the positives of this source in the sense that it's quite an accurate reflection of some of the negative things that happen to people. But this leads us on to quite a big question 3, step 3 here, because your step 3 is all about, well, does it give you a full account of the topic? What things perhaps is it missing out? Can you trust the author? And how accurate do you think it is overall? So this section, you're going to say, well, actually, however, it doesn't give a full account of demobilization because it only provides 1 or 2 of the negatives. It doesn't tell you any of the positives. The fact that it was very well organized, for example. The fact that people were given numbers for demobilization, when they, dependent on how long they served, how old they were, whether they were married, all of these things. So those are the things that you might talk about. You want to talk about the author. Is he credible? Okay, do you think that actually he should be someone that knows his stuff? in this case, you've got a historian who's writing a book solely dedicated to demobilisation, so I imagine he does know his stuff. But then overall, you need to say, well, how accurate is this particular snippet and interpretation? Okay, so, I would think that you would say it's somewhat accurate, but only focuses really on the negatives. Have a go at that. I know it's quite difficult when I'm not there to sort of be in front of you in the class and you haven't got teacher help and all the rest of it. But have a go at it. See if you can, follow the instructions. Have a bit of go at it. Look, it doesn't matter if you get it wrong, or you feel that it's not very good. It gives me something to mark. I'll give you some feedback on it, and what we're doing at this point is just trying to improve. So I know this is hard, but have a go.